Alright, I promise I'm not going to do that thing where I ask a game to completely change and cater to me, but after watching a lot of Arc Raiders impressions and reviews, and I even played it myself for about 6 hours, I have to say, a PvE mode would fit really well in this game, and I am not alone in asking for this. A lot of what is motivating me to even make this video is because I think this game has huge potential, and it's going to struggle to be realized because the PvE option is just not there. The other thing that I'm not going to do is I'm not just going to ask for it and leave it at that. I've got a handful of ideas and how they could implement it, and I even have responses to some of the more common pushback that people have when you ask for PvE in a game like this. Because honestly, so much of this game is clearly built on the foundation of a very well-structured PvE game. So I get it. There's going to be a lot of disagreement here, but I truly think that Arc Raiders has the potential to be more than just another extraction shooter. The scalability, longevity, and the possibilities are vast and deep for a game like this, and so much of that I think is going to be limited in its current setup. More than that, the player base is going to be limited, as many of us simply will not touch an extraction shooter where PvP is not optional and it can be very off-putting. So this video is not meant to bash the game or change something that you are currently enjoying. My ideas are to enhance the experience for everyone and grow the player base beyond the limited scope of just the people who enjoy extraction shooters. Now, before I get into this, if at any point during this video you like what you hear or you want to kind of discuss it, make sure you hit like and subscribe so you can get more of my videos or my live streams. So let's get into it, and I want to start with all the evidence for just how PvE-centric this game already is. Alright, so from where I sit, the signs are there that this game is largely built on something that was once very PvE focused. Now, originally, it was apparently planned to be a free-to-play looter shooter. Somewhere along the line, though, it switched gears into what it is today. And I think that's why a PvE mode would fit so well, and it would really dovetail with the existing systems. So first, let's just talk about the AI in the game. This is some of the best and smartest AI that I've ever played against. The drones will check areas where they've sensed movement or noise. Once they see you, they engage in very tactical ways. They'll force you at times to hunker down, and then they're going to sort of swoop in and out of sight lines, trying to draw you out. I fought off 4 drones at once in one of my earliest games, and the way that they would sort of flank and change position and take turns shooting at me, it made it very difficult to get just enough damage on a single target. It felt very intentional, and those were just the flying drones. There's also like sniper bots that'll sit overlooking sections, and they can be incredibly punishing if they land a shot. More than that, the way that the drones aggro and track and follow you, it can be pretty challenging and even frustrating. Like, if you think that I'm asking for PvE because I want an easy time, anybody who has actually played this game will tell you the bots are very well built from an AI and tactics perspective. Now, the second part of this PvE puzzle isn't just the intelligence of the bots, it's the threat. There are sort of the medium-sized spider-looking ones, and they are no joke. They don't just sort of track, follow, or shoot. They will push, and they don't let up until you've either escaped or you're dead. And the threat's not just sort of the bigger or the deadly ones, or the fact that, you know, these things can actually kill you. It's the consistent presence. You might go into a lower area, and there's these ticks that can jump on you. There's roller bots that'll chase you. There's cameras that can see you. There's turrets that can light you up. And all of this really, I think, points to a robust and well-built PvE system within the game of Arc Raiders. And I've not even spoken about the giant spider boss that bunches of players have tried to take down and have failed to do so. It sounds an awful lot like they have aspirational PvE content sort of already baked in to the game's crust. And I only make this point to establish just how much quality there is in this game without even looking at PvP engagements or balance, weapon metas, or anything like that. So how could this work? Well, I'm glad that you asked. One of the biggest problems I have with Arc Raiders and games like it is what I call the downward spiral. Me and a buddy of mine had 4 or 5 bad matches in a row, and 1 or 2 of those were self-inflicted. We initiated fights, and we were outmatched or just outgunned. That shotgun's pretty strong. But the other 2 to 3 that we lost, well, they were just rough situations where players take you by surprise. You can get third party just sort of fighting against the bots, and then you're back in the lobby. Well, this creates a downward spiral of power loss. You run out of currency, materials, and most importantly, guns and ammo. It put us in a situation where even a run where we just wanted to sort of get in and out quickly, avoiding players, well, we ran out of ammo fighting just 2 basic drones. This level of power loss isn't just demoralizing, it's demotivating. It's a very quick exit from this game for anybody like me who doesn't really think the slog in those lower weakened levels is that really worth it for the payout. So what I'm suggesting is a baseline PvE experience that would enable players to avoid this downward spiral. And as I've already demonstrated, the PvE encounters and enemies are no walk in the park. I'm not talking about making the game so casual that it loses its identity. You want the surface to feel threatening and desolate and dangerous. This would simply be an option to run the games, kind of get in the grind, and get to a place where going into a PvP active environment would feel more appropriate. Using the free kit or going in totally handicapped simply because you had some rough games, well, it just turns you into cannon fodder for really anything that crosses your path. And as an Extraction fan, you might think, well, yeah, that's great. That's what makes this so enjoyable once you get really better kitted. Some fans even say that you end up with so much loot and gear in games like this that level of powerlessness and that downward spiral, well, it doesn't really last. But that's not really the point. The point is giving an inroad for more players to enjoy the game and not feel so robbed of volition and power so easily. And listen, if you're enjoying the game, my suggestion would not take away from your experience. If anything, it would make it better. If you see me in your game and you take the risk of engaging, you're going to shoot me, you're going to kill me, you're drawing attention to yourself, and I have this totally bankrupt, barely functioning kit, well, that's not very rewarding for the risk that you just took. My suggestion would create a base level expectation that, well, most of the players you engage with are going to have at least a decent setup and at the very least a healthy amount of ammo to put into your stores. So this might be a good time to address some of the pushback on this idea and flesh out more of how this would work. One of the most common responses to my suggestion is that, well, it'll hurt the game. You're going to split the player base. Essentially the idea that, well, players are going to flock to PvE to avoid the risk of PvP, and that'll turn the PvP environment into a sweat fest, right? Only the most hardcore players would be in that player funnel. Now, my response to this is pretty simple. The PvE option would merely be structured as a stepping stone into the real environment. Again, it's meant to be a baseline to keep folks from spiraling down into too much loot and ammo poverty. So you would reserve the higher tier loot, the better stuff, for those willing to go into the PvP servers. This would prevent the PvE guys from sort of grinding to the point where they could then step into the PvP realm and be like Godzilla on the map and be incredibly powerful. If anything, the risk-reward here would be well-balanced. You'd be stepping into the PvP environment sort of motivated by the fact that there's better loot there, and well-versed PvP players would be in there, and they would naturally have better kits and better stuff. Now, this doesn't mean that the PvE guys would automatically lose, but you'd have to bring your A game and your awareness. Now, you're not even guaranteed to see or fight players, so you could go in, be very sneaky, get some good stuff, and get out, and that adrenaline rush, I think, would be pretty potent, because you'd know, I can't get the best gear in PvE, I kind of have to come in here to get it. The beauty is, more PvE-minded players would start to get a taste for why extraction shooters are so addicting, and they would always have that safety net to fall back into. They could sort of retreat to PvE, gear back up, get their currency, get their ammo back up before venturing out into the wild west of PvP. Now, another response that I get is that, well, a PvE option would devalue the loot because now everybody can get it more easily. My response is that loot is already pretty devalued because it's pretty available. You can run a free kit, run a couple of quick rounds, and a lot of those basic level guns and ammo and healing supplies, it's not that difficult to get it. It just feels pretty tedious. And in the process of trying to do that, you can be killed by other players. Now, none of that stuff is going to suddenly be highly coveted by experienced players or well-kitted PvP players. No matter what, the lower tier loot is of lower value by its existence within the power structure of the game. A purple shotgun versus a white pistol doesn't suddenly change just because the white tier loot is grindable in a PvP-free environment. My goal here is twofold: get more players in the game and keep more players in the game by having a foundation that every player can sort of rely on when they find themselves on the bad end of a few games in a row. And the devs just revealed that after like 4 million rounds of Arc Raiders, their toughest boss has only been beaten like 58 times. The Queen, this sort of giant version of the spider drone, you may have seen those jumping around the map. Well, the Queen is huge. And the math is currently that roughly 0.001% of all matches have even seen the big Queen killed. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds like really great aspirational PvE content that could be better suited for an environment where other players can't just kill you for the sport of it while you're facing a building-sized boss. The evidence is overwhelming that much of Arc Raiders is built around PvE ideas. Roaming drones, robots, mini-bosses, larger-than-life bosses, security systems that make noise. This is all against the backdrop of heightened intensity because there could be players nearby, and that intensity is better felt when you're going into the PvP environment with a sense of risk and potential loss. That doesn't really happen after your third or fourth loss to other players, because you're simply going back in just to get to a place of decent strength. So at that point, there's not really any intensity, it's just frustration, which can quickly lead to exodus or non-engagement. Games like this live and die on the re-engagement of players, and the devs should heavily consider how much a well-built PvE option could really help with that aspect, and even create other opportunities for raid-like content or other challenging encounters. Some of my best games in Arc Raiders, some of the most intense moments, weren't even against players. I think that proves that these guys have what it takes to build really good PvE encounters and content, and it seems like a huge missed opportunity to not start implementing things like that now. Not just so more players play the game, but so the game can become something truly special instead of just the current extraction shooter of the moment. But those are just my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below. And as always, make sure you hit like, share, and subscribe so I can see you in the next video.